Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and today I'm joined by my brother, the Gritty Broman. How are you, Brent?
I'm well, thank you.
Cool. Today we're going to talk a little bit about bugs. A little bit about ticks. A buddy of mine just asked me, like yesterday, we got into this discussion about ticks, and I thought, you know what, this might be a good discussion to have on a podcast because it comes up all the time. So I'm going to tell you what I told him yesterday. I haven't done a ton of research on this. Brent can probably start looking this up right now. But how deep does a tick have to get into you to infect you with like Rocky Mountain fever and stuff? Ticks are interesting. You know, if you're not been around them a lot and they start crawling all over you, it can freak you out. And they are serious business. They're nothing to ignore. They can cause some serious health issues for people because they carry a lot of diseases, including Rocky Mountain fever, which affect people's, I don't know what it affects. It seems to affect everything. Neurological issues to just gut and like all sorts of health problems. So they can be a problem. So how do we handle ticks? Like, what do we do? So there's some things that I do. You know, I've run permethrin where you spray down your pants and your boots and things like that, your gaiters. And it's basically a toxin. It's a hormone disruptor of some kind. And you can spray it on your pants. And in theory, what happens is as long as it's dry, you don't really get it into your system. It doesn't soak through your skin. It doesn't then cause some toxicity issues for you. But so you can spray it on your backpack, you can spray it on some things, and you'll see a tick. It'll crawl onto something that has permethrin on it. Like let's say you spray it on your pants and then your pants go completely dry in the sun or whatever. And then for like a week or two, that permethrin lasts. And you see a tick crawl onto it, and it just starts getting slower and slower, and then kind of frozen or just falls off. They're just not the same. It does something to them, jacks them up, and I think it is a death sentence. It just takes them a while to die. So even if they crawl across it and then start to crawl on your skin, they seem to be, on their way out. So they rarely poke or dig at you or anything like that. The problem with permethrin is, and I've discussed this with Ryan, and he has with his doctor wife, Hillary, and it's that hormone disruptor, and it is toxic to humans. It's not good for you to have it on your skin and to get into your body, and it can throw things off. It's nothing to toy around with. So do you want the risk of permethrin, or the risk of the ticks, or a little balance of both? So for example, only if the garment covered in permethrin gets saturated does it really activate the permethrin in a way that it could soak into your skin or cause you some toxicity. So in theory, if you throw it on your backpack and it doesn't get rained on, or it stays pretty dry and you're not touching it, then you're probably not going to get it into your body. But all of that is just to say, like, there's risks with these toxins, and personally, I'd rather take my risks with the ticks at this point, and I'll tell you why. We're covered in ticks. Like, we are covered in mountains of ticks when we're out there. We've been in tick-infested rock piles where this year I counted like 12 off of Ryan's head just on his. I have video. I'll show it to you guys when I publish film. You'll see ticks just crawling all over his head. I was grabbing him. I think I collected 40 in the space of 20 or 30 minutes and put them in a Ziploc. They're everywhere, okay? But what I've noticed is some things that I like to do to avoid getting hurt by a tick is I will try more or less to keep it hard for them to get to under my clothing. So, for example, if I'm really in tick heavy area and or I'm going to sit still, I'm not hiking, I'm just sitting, and I'm going to glass for a while. That's when a lot of ticks can crawl on you. I tuck my pants into my socks. I look like a dork, but that's okay. And I make sure my shirt, I was wearing all season, I love this thing. I was wearing the Mountain Ops Battleground Merino hoodie. I run that, I tuck it in, and ticks are on it, and ticks can crawl, but it's tucked in. My socks are tucked in. So it's really tough for a tick to get under my skin unless it goes through my sleeve. But they never go in because they're really never on my hands. They kind of travel upward toward your face and your head. And so every now and then they'll crawl into my shirt or whatever up around my head, and I can always feel them on my neck, and I just pull them off and smash them with a rock or flick them, so, but they really don't get on me except through that. And so I can also throw my hoodie on if I'm going through brush or I'm along a riverbank. They tend to drop onto you in those situations. So I'll throw my hoodie on and zip it up when we're going through brush and all of that. And again, the tick has to crawl on the outside of my hoodie, to access. The only place to get in is where my hands are and where my face is. Otherwise, everything's tucked in. And then I'll just catch them when they're trying to get to other places, or Ryan or somebody will pick all the ticks off me. Mark will have them all over him. I just pick them off. Now, whenever I stop, I often wait, like I'll sit around for, I don't know, something like, every 3 or 4 hours. Like when I wake up in the morning, one of the first things I do is a shameless tick check. Mm-hmm. That's where Brian Call gets mostly naked and checks for ticks. And I might ask Ryan or Mark to check in my blind spots if I got a tick right here, right there. But generally, I'm able to check mostly everything I can see or feel. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just have those guys like take a look at my back. Mark will look at my armpits, whatever he has to try to see if there's a tick there. And I pick a tick off. So when ticks crawl on you, it's odd. They don't immediately start digging in. They're not like a mosquito that lands and then goes for it. Ticks crawl on you forever. They like crawl around. They'll be somewhere on your body, and they're just rooting around, and they don't actually dig. Sometimes they're there, I think 8 or 9 hours before they ever try to stick you, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, as long as you check every 4 hours or something, or once in the morning and once in the evening before you go to bed, which is my routine. I check in the morning because some can get on you or something while you're sleeping. And I think they tend to dig more when you're stationary in your sleeping bag at night. So if you do have one on you, or one slips into your bag overnight, it's more likely to be poking you in the morning than any other time. Because even the ones that crawl on you during the day, it seems like until you sit down and go to sleep, they don't try to do their dirty deeds. So in the morning, I just check. And then in the evening before I go to bed, I do a thorough check. I check my clothes, and I have people kind of check some spots. And you start to figure out that they like certain areas they like to kind of dive in if possible. Mm-hmm. And for Ryan, he's been bit. I think he had Lyme's disease at one point, or Rocky Mountain fever of some kind. I think it made him sick. But ever since that time, he's never been bit. And this was a long time ago. Something about him they just don't like. They flat out, they crawl on him, but they always crawl right up here behind his head. He never finds them on his body somewhere. They just don't. Livesay, they love Mark. They love me. Probably love me the most. They're constantly on me. And I probably got poked 6 or 7 times by ticks on this last 3.5 week trip, where they kind of put that little pointer into your skin and break the skin. I almost always feel it almost immediately, or it itches. I detect it. Now, I don't know. Some people may not. They're supposed to be emitting some kind of numbing agent or whatever ticks do, so you can't detect it. But I detect it. Like, I feel it. I'm like, ah! And then I immediately go and check, and there's a little tick that poked me. I don't think it's been there very long. I think I detect it right away. But I'll even wake up in a dead sleep in the middle of the night, out cold, and I'm like, oh! And I'll yank down my drawers, and I'll have one like on my thigh somewhere. But again, they take time to cause damage. They crawl on you a long time before they even poke you. But even if they poke you, you're really not at much risk as far as I understand.
So from what I'm reading online, it's kind of one of the things that they know that something happens, but they're not really sure how it works. They know that not all ticks carry them, and they estimate, this is a great percentage, about 1 to 50% of all tick species, not ticks, species, carry different kinds of disease and pathogens. There's a list a mile long of things you can catch from a tick.
Right.
So they say that, well, they don't really know how long. A minimum attachment time has never been established, but they have had people say that there's been records of as little as 15 minutes up to 48 hours. And people have caught and not caught on both ends of that spectrum.
But what do they call or consider attachment? Because the head, they burrow their head in and they really go to town. And when you try to remove them, the head gets stuck usually, and they can splooge junk into your body at some point in that process. Typically, it seems that once the head is in, that's when there's some risk. But if they've just done a poke, it seems like there's very little that.
What you're worried about is actual fluids or body parts being left behind when you pull out and you get an infection from it. But so it's either body fluids or infection from rotting bug parts being in your body.
Could be, but at what point does it, like, when it pokes you, it's a one-way hose at first, it seems. Later, it becomes a two-way problem, and then you're infected with stuff. I don't really know. All I know is they don't bother me. They get a little poke, and they come right out. Now, if they've dug in, you're in trouble, it seems.
So ticks fall off between 36 and 48 hours after attaching. So they've seen people have, what's the word I'm thinking of? They have records of people saying that they've had ticks on them for up to 8 hours, before a tick will actually bite them. And then once it burrows, they might actually start drinking blood right away. Like, they're very finicky. They're like a dog trying to find a place to pee. Like, they don't really seem to know what they want.
Yeah.
But they don't know how long an attachment, and it's hard to tell how long it's been attached because they kind of just plump up right away.
I've never had one that plump up, like, you know what I mean? I mean,
they're swollen. Like
yeah, I know what they are. They were all over the llamas, a couple of them.
Yeah.
And they just went giant, and they're grosser than heck gross, and then they flop off. But like I said, it hasn't been a problem. I mean, as long as I check every few hours, I always catch anything that might be a problem.
That's what seems to be the biggest thing. It's just vigilance, because it looks like they're not like mosquitoes. They're not going to drop on you and just start going to town. They seem to want to find just the right spot.
It's just I say this all the time. It's not worth the risk. So I just do the shameless check every 5 or 6 hours. And it's not a problem. I wake up in the morning, I do another check. Before I go to bed, I do a check. In the afternoon, I do a couple of checks. And I rarely get poked, but even when I have got poked, it's like a tiny dot, and it's like almost, I think I'm catching it within, because I checked, I think I'm catching it within minutes to hours of when it first happened. But I think they got to be on you a while. I think they got to go in pretty deep too to cause a problem, because if not, I mean, I think you'd have a lot more problems with this.
I mean, that thing buried in your body could be urinating or pooping or whatever, out of bowel movement. I'm trying to find ways of removing a tick, and there's like so many things on the internet.
There's one that I have researched that looks genius, and it's the only one that I found, and it's got this little hook. It looks like a crowbar. And if you look it up, a bunch of guys texted me. I'm sure a bunch of guys will comment in this description field. They have this little crowbar thing that they stick on there, and then you twist it at the base, and the tick just lets go. So the head doesn't get stuck. It's crazy. I've watched tons of videos, and it seems like, I forget what the tool is called. I meant to order it the other day, but we need to look that up, figure it out. But it's actually crazy legit how it works. Most of them don't work very well. It ends up causing problems, trying to remove it actually causes more infection and problems. But
so I have the tick key and the tick twister or the tick tornado.
mm-hmm.
It looks just like the back of a hammer.
Yeah.
Like the claw of a hammer.
Right. But the one that I saw is a little different than usual because a lot of those, they go like this and they try to pry it up with that. Mm-hmm. But this goes in and you slowly twist it and it almost gives the tick, it constricts the tick and makes it back out by itself, causing not the same kind of harm than if you tried to yank it out or pry it out. But we need a tick expert to join this show. All I can say is, from my experience, I've used permethrin. I've not used it. I prefer not to use it. And I prefer to exercise these practices where I tuck in my socks, tuck in my shirt here and there, and I check every few hours. I check when I wake up and I check when I go to bed. Not a big deal for me. I'm not a shy guy for the most part either. Take the shirt off. I dig around. I look. And as long as you're vigilant, nobody really gets bit. Mark had one stuck in his ear, like it was going to town.
Heck no.
But again, we detect it early.
Right
Mark
away.
had one on his back, on his chest, kind of poking and digging in, and one was kind of getting his way in there on a long hike, and we pull it out. And as long as you're pretty vigilant on it, and I'm probably more vigilant than most because I don't see the reason in not being. Like every 4 hours or so, I just do a quick check, drop my drawers, pull my shirt, look around, check, put it back together and go. And I've never been bitten. I've never been infected or had one really dig in, and I've been exposed a lot.
This is not something I like Googling.
Brent's over there with a yucky face.
Just bugs and skin and all these tools trying to yank them and pry them out, man.
Yeah.
Woof.
So anyway, that's my approach. Like I said, try to do things to minimize their ability to crawl under my clothes, tuck my pants and my socks, whatever. And then check. And that's kind of it. If you do decide to use permethrin, you just want to make sure it doesn't get reactivated, that it stays dry. Put it on things, I just be careful with the use of it. It's got its risks, and I'm not sure that it does. I think you have to use quite a bit for it to be effective, and I don't know that I have a whole bunch fewer ticks on me when I use it or when I don't use it. I do think I've seen some ticks that just are done. They're just weird looking. They just sit there and they just fall off. They're not as lively. So it's doing something for sure, but it comes with risks. So the other thing I wanted to mention today was mosquitoes and white socks and like little gnats and stuff. Those bugs, flies that get you. I'm going to go to Alaska. I'll come back. But, the guys up there were like, yeah, I actually recommend you bring some DEET. Try not to get it on your skin. Spray the DEET on your clothes. And then wear a head net and gloves, or just wear clothes that kind of protect you from if the mosquitoes get really bad. But, yeah, up in Alaska, there can be, or north in general, there can be some bug hatches and some just hordes of flies. I was on that BC bear hunt in mid-June years ago, and it was just mosquitoes and white socks just in hordes, just
clouds,
clouds
obstructing vision.
And there was no relief, and they're biting and biting and biting, and you didn't have a head net. We didn't have a head net. I got one later that day, but having a head net, a little bug spray doesn't hurt, to throw that on top of your hat maybe or whatever. Same issue with permethrin, although I think DEET is less destructive, but you want to be careful with that stuff. Try not to get it on your skin. Keep it on your clothing and different objects. But sometimes, in that case, you're just trying to survive these bugs. Mosquitoes can be a nightmare. So, but here's the thing. Thermacell. Worth every penny. Like, Thermacell is incredible what it can do. So I started using Thermacell a few years back when I was in BC. Same place, same problem I've had in the past when we were hunting bears. Well, the Thermacell has those little cartridges that you stick in there, and they're like CO2 or something. I don't know, butane, and it heats the chemical up, and like I don't remember. It's not a real toxic deal like Citracell or Citronella or something like that, but it puts it in the air and puts it airborne. We took those Thermacells, switched them on, stick them on your backpack, and you all of a sudden had this force field. Like the bugs just declined in numbers dramatically, even with a slight breeze. You'd think the side that's you'd have to put it downwind of you a little bit so that they won't. It just did a circular shield, like a sphere.
It's trippy.
And we were able to hunt without, because you're sitting still in a tree stand in a meadow, and this is the flies just and the bugs. They come on strong, the mosquitoes, but you throw that thing up and boom, you have this little shield blocking you and protecting you. It was unreal. It was unreal. It was so you got to bring Thermacell and leverage that if you need to for mosquito issues. And they're just, it's a pretty lightweight setup to carry. The butane things can be a problem because you can't fly with stuff like that, gas cartridges. Yeah. So you got to pick them up
while you're there,
wherever you land. But they're money. So ground cloths and sleeping at night. I used to have a hard time just dreaming about ticks and spiders crawling on me and whatever, bugs, because it's a floorless shelter. If it really does bother you, run a nest, inside the shelter. And then you can it's got a floor, you're fully nested in, and you got no problems with bugs. But, I mean, we haven't really done that very much with the nest. Hardly ever. We don't really need to go to that extreme. And I'd take the Thermacell inside the teepee to keep mosquitoes out more than I would even the nest. But that's another option. So anyway, I hope that was useful. Hope it was helpful to y'all. And before we go, I want to remind you to check out Peaks. Get yourself some sissy sticks, trekking poles, and some gaiters if you're in the market. Use the code GRITTY over there. That helps us out. And also, I just used the Initial Ascent backpack on this recent month-long hunt. It performed awesome. If you're interested in the pack, I did 2 podcasts. Go check it out. If you're interested in the pack, we have a code with them. Use the code GRITTY, and you'll get a discount on a new backpack. I actually love the thing. I mean, I'm going to keep using it, and they've got some cool design things they're going to build into it moving forward. And I love that Dennis and Joe are willing to take my input, and evolve this thing over time. Mm-hmm. So that's really cool. I'm getting my hands on my Seek Outside my Seek Outside backpack here, coming here real soon. And I'm going to run that one too for extended period and see what I think about that one. So it's fun to test out the new gear, but if you use the code GRITTY over at Seek Outside, you can get yourself like 5% off on stuff over there as well. And I think the code's still active over there. Can't remember, but
let us know.
Let us know if it's not. And then use the code GRITTY over at OnX. You get 20% off. If you haven't got the app or you got to renew it, help us out. Use the code GRITTY. And use the code GRITTY if you're interested in that Mountain Ops Merino Battleground hoodie I mentioned earlier. I think it's a great weight base layer. I love merino wool. It's just comfortable. I like the hoodie. I like the cut. I like the pocket. I like it all. So check that out. I've been wearing it the last couple of seasons. It's a great merino wool product. It's called the Battleground hoodie. They have it in some different colors, from black to green to like a mustard and whatever. So use the code GRITTY over there. Also, Ignite. I love Ignite. That's a great product over at Mountain Ops. That or Yeti. I use all that kind of stuff. Slumber for sleeping at night. Those are some staples. Blaze shots, things that I like. So if you're interested in some of that, you want to pick up some of that, use the code GRITTY over there. You'll get a discount. I think it's free shipping is what you get with the code, and it helps us out too. Get yourself some travel packs for the backcountry. It's coming up here soon. And use the code Gritty over at Stealthy Nutrition. At Stealthy Nutrition, you can pick up CBD gummies. You can pick up, I really love the e-charge that they've got over there. There's a few things that krill oil that Stealthy's got you covered on. So check that out. And thanks for tuning in. Stay gritty.